Now let's do a deep dive into SharePoint Solutions. What we're going to look at here are some of the guidance around when to use the solutions, what you should do with upgrades and managing the life cycle of these solutions, and how you actually handle maintenance tasks. So we'll get started with guidance. Traditionally, and if you're used to working with SharePoint development, Solutions was the recommended way of putting pretty much any content into SharePoint. Everything from a new style sheet or a new theme, all the way up to event handlers, web parts, workflows, everything kind of ran into Solutions. That's changed with SharePoint 2013. It's recommended for non-UI extensions. User level user experience should go into SharePoint apps by guidance. That doesn't mean it has to. You still have the capability of pushing out user level UI elements through Solutions, but the infrastructure and how that user UI is handled is why the recommendation is now to move over to SharePoint apps. The resource packaging still recommended as solution deployments. So if you've got those style sheets or those themes or all of those kind of pieces, drop them into the solutions. This is there for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that it makes handing off to your operations staff a lot easier. It makes sure that things are always put where they need to be. And the second reason is that if you do need to do disaster recovery, failover, backups, all of the rest of that, solution packages make it very easy to redeploy in a very repeatable manner. That was one of the reasons why they were first introduced, and that reason still applies today. So if you're trying to get everything together, if you want to make sure that your resources can always be put into a reproducible form, maybe burned onto disk or put to offsite backup or cloud storage, but be able to come back and redeploy those servers the exact same way, solutions are the right way to do that. I do want to make just a bit of a comment, since I mentioned that solutions are for non-user UI extensions. One area where the UI extensions really do kind of still fit into solutions is for things such as central administrative tasks and interfaces there. That still should go back into solutions, and the reason for that is twofold. One is because those tasks tend to be fairly intermittent. Anything that's regular is probably not going through the interface anyway. It's going through some of the either management tools or through your PowerShell interfacing. And the second is that SharePoint Central Administration, if you look at it, it doesn't entirely map to the new SharePoint app model. So you're looking at things that are a little more traditional, a layout that's a lot more simple, that doesn't need the level of configuration and personalization that you do for the SharePoint front end. You don't have public and shared views and all the rest of that. It's a lot simplified interface, both to keep down resources and just because a lot of those features aren't super needed in that spot. So if you're putting together a administrative UI, basically, maybe you're doing some configuration options for a solution. If you're doing something that's happening at that central administration, the web app level, or the website level, those can still sit in solutions and still meet guidance as well. So things kind of, a lot of this is just basically anything that's very high volume, that's very high resource. The guidance is to move it over into the SharePoint app. So just be aware of that. For upgrades, upgrades are really where solutions shine because you've got the ability to uniquely identify every version in a feature with those GUIDs, being able to make sure that different versions upgrade to commonly, or maybe you're upgrading and you have multiple versions, or you're an ISV that you're releasing upgrades, and the SharePoint deployment that you're installing to may have more than one version of your feature in there. Being able to go in, uniquely identify what's there, being able to actually take action on that upgrade path, make solutions uniquely valuable for doing upgrades in the lifecycle management of how you move SharePoint functionality around. So keep an eye on that one. If you've got applications or if you've got functionality that do need to kind of evolve over time, maybe there are business processes that you need to work with, maybe they're just various different capabilities that you know are going to be cycled over and over again. One of the big pieces that I normally make sure that goes into a solution is anything that has regulatory requirements, because those tend to change on a fairly repeatable basis. You know that it's going to come out when new laws are enacted or when new cycles come around, or review cycles. You know that's going to happen. So having that in and being able to have those GUIDs and be able to say data change from this version to this version, or be able to go through there, makes things very, very easy. Just be aware of that. Like I said, those events allow you to be able to drop in, change states, change storage, do all of those kind of things. You can embed that right in the solution. So if you've got something that needs upgrades, if you're not thinking solutions, you're kind of going about your point the hard way. And then the maintenance. Solutions tie into traditional logging usage mechanisms, so you can actually go in, as you'll see in the central administration when it's deployed, you can actually get a lot of information off of the solutions. You can actually see what resources, you can actually do some various ways of understanding what's going on if something's in a solution. You know that you can actually do activating and deactivating. You can actually have solutions that are deployed but not active, have them pre-positioned, activate them to do testing in the live environment, and then deactivate them until they're needed. So you've got a lot of capabilities to drop in there. The solutions can go in and actually have a lot of diagnostic information. As I have here, the SP monitored scope allows you to put wrappers around what's going on in those solutions and actually tell you what's happening, to be able to know what's going on. You want this for two reasons. One, it's always great to have that information in there. On the other side, you are running native code on the server with solutions, or you have the capability of doing that. So if you're causing problems on your server, your admin guys are going to come and probably check with you on that. So if you've got the documentation, if you can actually prove what your solution is or is not doing, it's going to be very, very valuable for you. And then finally, for that maintenance, make sure and fully document your solution. Ideally, you would actually put some of this documentation in the solution package itself, but ops can go in and review the manifest. All this is XML. You can go through and do some extraction and see what files and all the pieces. But normally, it's the same as you picking up a app 6 months after you finish working with it. If you haven't worked with it in a while, you have to kind of dig out what was going on. Your ops guys will have to do the same thing. So put plenty of documentation in for what's happening there. Make sure the more descriptive you can put it there, the better. Put it in there with an eye to somebody puts it into a backup system and it pulls it out in 5 years, and how can they tell what's going on or what are the details? So fully documented in, that's going to make a world of difference for your operations guys, and anything you can do to make your operations guys' lives happier are going to make your life happier as well.